Woman in the Wheel from Munsey's magazine said, "To men, the bicycle in the beginning was merely a new toy, another machine added to the long list of devices they knew in their work and play. To woman, it was a steed upon which they rode into a new world. For men, the bicycle simply added to their vast list of freedoms they had long been accustomed to. But for women, the bicycle was the initiation of their freedom and their mobility. The bicycle opened up doors to a new world that women had never before been a part of, a world in which they held the power, a world in which they were in control." As a result of the bicycle, women's mobility increased. Women could decide where they wanted to go and what they wanted to do without the help of a man. The bicycle allowed women to get from point A to point B by themselves and without relying on anyone else. This new woman was actively seeking new experiences and immediately impacting the world around her. Due to the bicycle, the woman's sphere of influence was broadened and she was no longer confined to the walls of the home. The new woman's physical stamina increased, and she exercised fundamental power changes in conventions of courtships and chaperonage, of marriage and travel. The bicycle led to a prominent change in women's fashion. Women's fashion was traditionally very restrictive and limiting. Many argued that items such as the petticoat was a garment that was the most in harmony with the mental qualities that nature had implemented in the female sex. Prior to the bicycle, women's clothing consisted of tight corsets, long petticoats, and extravagant skirts. Ultimately, men were dictating what women would wear. Females were seen as a locus of purity, and those who made changes to fashion were seen as redefining virtue. Then with the bicycle came the introduction of more comfortable clothing, less restrictive clothing, allowing for more freedom in movements. Fashion started to reflect the way in which women perceived themselves. This became known as rational dress. Perhaps the most prominent impact of women's clothing was the introduction of bloomers. We also began to see divided skirts, optimizing comfort and practicality. This new clothing increased women's physical movement in and out of the house due to less restrictive outfits. Clothing no longer stated, "man is in control." There was a switch of power. Clothing was more comfortable, as women began to become more comfortable in their own bodies, and as a result, women became less objectified. With this introduction of more comfortable clothing, ideas of mannish fashion started to rise. Women started to look like men, and men saw this as a threat. They felt they were losing power. Many continued to make the case that women and men needed separate wardrobes. For instance, Dr. Tilt argued for the importance of womanly dress. He stated, "In assuming our costume, there would be a great likelihood of women assuming our masculine manners, which would not enhance their charm. It is therefore important that there should be a different costume for the girl and the woman, in order that on quitting one for the other, girls should feel that they were promoted in society, and that therefore more is expected of them." Fashion meant more than just clothing, and men were not comfortable with women dressing like them. In this picture specifically, we see how the woman in cycling attire is not doing any housework, and this is precisely what men fear. She is above the woman washing dishes, and her clothing does not highlight the female body. Society began to see the defeminization of women as they started to dress more masculine. This introduced the idea of the manly woman, which we see in this life cartoon, showing a woman with a bicycle wearing bloomers at the pearly white gates of heaven, saying, "Isn't heaven in there?" And the angel responding, "Yes, but this is the ladies' entrance," contributing to the ideal that women who rode bicycles were simply men. And this concept of the mannish woman led to fear of emasculation for men. If women began to dress like men, then they would start to act like men, and would want to possess the power and freedom of men. In man's eyes, women must be easily identified out in public, and there must not be any confusion as to their place in society. The new woman started to blend in with men, and slowly crept in on man's freedoms and power. This emasculation of men emerged from the fear of men and women switching gender roles. For men, there was a realization that women's lot in the home was hardly something to be envied. Men began to fear that they would be the ones in the domestic sphere and have to take care of the house and children. Men feared having to do the marginal work of women inside the home. Men were losing power as this gender transference occurred. Men feared that once women expanded their boundaries out of the domestic sphere, they would have no interest in returning, and the traditional gender norms would be switched. Women no longer accepted their traditional roles without question. In this cartoon specifically, we see how the woman is physically elevated over the man. She holds the power. She is presented as a physical specimen, and he looks weak and frail. We see how the domestic scene is crumbling, and chaos is dominating the home, while the man struggles to gain control within the house. There was a fear of women's athletics in general. Women were told that the only sports they should be doing were cleaning the house and doing the laundry. Ideas of lesbianism began to rise, as well as the fear that women's sports created the manly, defeminized woman. This new athletic woman juxtaposed the old Victorian woman, who was perfect, pure, angelic, and virginal. This is how men wanted women to remain. We can see this new, overly sexed woman presented in this image. The curves of her body are highlighted and her voluptuousness is evident. Prior to the bicycle, even showing your ankle was frowned upon in society. These women were now exposing way more skin in public than had ever been accepted. In addition, there were many health implications for women regarding the bicycle. Doctors argued against strenuous exercise for women and stated that physical assertion would redirect vital energy needed to produce healthy children. The sole purpose of women was to replenish the empire. Bicycles got in the way of this job. It was believed that the very idea of pedaling could counteract the whole human race. The bicycle brought about many sexual implications for women. The societal view of the bicycle was that it created the overly sexed woman. And similar to horseback riding, many objected to women straddling the bicycle. There were different saddles created for women, called the duplex. Advertisements read, "Underweight of rider, it hollows out like a chair. No pressure on sensitive parts of the body." These manufacturers designed bicycles that promoted hygienic and anatomical saddles that removed the middle section of the seat, resulting in practically no friction on the female body. The bicycle also started to become very popular in literature as well. A short story called Romance of a Bicycle demonstrates how the bicycle is mutually exclusive to power. In the story, the bicycle gives the protagonist power while simultaneously helping solve a murder. The bike enables the woman to fall in love and marry the man of her dreams. The bicycle gave women the power to choose in so many different aspects of life. Women started to realize the power they possessed, and the shift in authority began, and women were not completely at the whim of men anymore. As women gained more power in and out of the home, men continued to lose more authority. This is the woman all men would like. She never thinks nor rides a bike. She cooks and cleans, and all the while, she looks quite sweet. Observe her smile. There were many attempts to keep women in the house, as the realization that the bicycle was a sign of change and freedoms to come became more and more clear. As long as women were in the house, men had the power and were in control. Men knew that if women were given a small amount of freedom, such as the bicycle, they would simply want more. It was man's goal to keep the idea of the perfect, submissive woman alive. There was a reason that one of the first women to ride a bicycle in public in London was hit with rocks and stones and told to go home where she belonged. It was in fact the mobility of women from the domestic sphere into other parts of society that scared men the most, and the bicycle allowed women to travel farther from their homes than they had ever been before. Men were scared of the power that the bicycle provided for women, and they were horrified of the change they knew was coming. There is no denying that the introduction of the bicycle brought newfound freedom and mobility for women in all aspects of life. Perhaps Susan B. Anthony most accurately depicts the power of the wheel, saying that bicycling has done more to emancipate women than anything else in the world. She says, "I stand and rejoice every time I see a woman ride by on a wheel."